I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of things. One of them is the folding disappearance of newspapers. When our society was giving itself a chance, newspapers and commonwealths like mayor's offices, public ed boards of education, um, stuck together around the idea that there were public defenders and attorneys and attorney generals and PTAs and neighborhood watch groups who looked after things to make sure that the public welfare was properly served and that people's rights were respected, but crimes were prosecuted according to established principles of law enforcement and jurisprudence. And we could be relatively content with our affairs that way. Newspapers covered the issues and worked together with investigators to make sure that the truth was ascertained about um, difficulties that arose among us. Now, if newspapers were still around, we might still have lost that. But certainly the loss of the newspapers is correlated, whether causal or acausally, to the phenomenon of um, brokered realities that don't really take those kinds of issues into consideration. The idea of America being a fair society depends on America being an open minded society. Now, Alexander Solzhenitsyn in 1978 gave the Harvard commencement address. It was probably May 1978. You can look it up. And what he argued about Russia and America was that he said that Russia lacked an objective legal system, the sort that I just described, which made it a terrible and repressive place. But he said it had also made the Russian people very spiritual. And he said that a legal system, a society that was based on the letter of the law, was not quite worthy of man. And his argument from there was towards the development of spirituality. I would argue that we developed in the name of spirituality an a-spirituality. We come to see crime as art for art's sake. Now, some of the explanations that are given for this have their roots in unacceptable evil that has occurred in American society. Like in Birmingham, Alabama, Fred Shuttlesworth's home was bombed. The children who were bombed in the church weren't as fortunate. It was terrible. And from some people, it's an unforgivable stain on our civics. Of course, we've seen this happen in schools where the targets weren't black children. And people have fallen apart in their faith. Children have become, I don't have any insight into what children are going through. As a child, I grew up watching Captain Kangaroo, which I greatly preferred to Mr. Rogers. And so I was no way prepared for the things that began happening in our society. Captain Kangaroo was a humanist, a humane person. I wasn't prepared for the nightmare of napalm, the pretending to care when people didn't care that took over the American establishment. I don't see it as a right wing. I see it as a crude little mafia. And the mentality of this crude little mafia has insufferably trickled down. And the trickle down theory of mafia dominion has allowed people to start gunning for images without any consideration of what happened in reality. They began to produce their own little theater companies, little drama departments, little pretenses. And reality becomes a push button issue on a PlayStation. And the psychology of that has gotten to the point where it has replaced American civics and turned us into a demented and sad junkyard of civics. Now, idealism, it's not. The place of idealism in society, the place of spirituality in society, it seems to me, is to endure the frustration when you don't know something's true or false, not to just shape it to give it definition around what you want to believe or what's useful to you to believe or what you can react against. Nelson Mandela called it the power to think properly. Americans have lost the power to think properly. And in the process, they've embraced subliminal theorems that replace thinking properly. And in the name of sticking together, we've come apart at the seams. It's ironic that this person in Congress named Sinema has a book called Unite and Conquer, because I believe that's exactly what's been going on. People have been united around thoroughly misplaced foolishness. And once united under such foolishness, they're ripe for conquering. And we need to conquer ourselves, return to the practical skepticism of an objective legal system, whereas the spirituality is endurance.